Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted, with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hi, Steve Garchow. Welcome back to Savvy Broadcasting. I'm so grateful to have you back here from Foresight Marketing. You have some wonderful details to share with the audience today. I'm so grateful you're here. How are you?
I'm doing great. And thanks very much for asking me back. I really appreciate it.
I always love having great guests that share great content to help our audience move forward. Most of our audience are business owners, but like all business owners, we can't know everything. And you're an expert in marketing and helping people get their message out there today. And today, what we're going to talk about, the topic is, are you ready to launch? There's so many people who have a new product or service or information, and they're wondering, like, what is the best time to put it out there? What does the market need? You're going to help us with all those questions. But before we go there, share with our audience who didn't catch our first interview a little bit about your backstory.
Sure. So I'm president of Foresight Marketing. And basically what I do, of course, is I focus on helping companies that are trying to commercialize their products or who perhaps haven't done enough market research in their customer base to make sure that they've got either their products or their services moving forward. Now, I started out as a market research analyst in a small company quite a few years ago. And eventually what I did is I moved into a Fortune 500 company where I started as just a marketing person and eventually finished up as a VP of global marketing for a $900 million division. After that, I spent two stints working for startups, and I must admit that I just had a tremendous amount of fun working with startups. And so eventually, after the second one finished up, it ended up selling to another company and all that kind of stuff. So I set up my consulting business where I focus a lot of my time now on helping a lot of startups.
And that's great because one of the things, even when I got started, you think sometimes, this is a problem I had. I got started and I thought, here's what I'm good at. I'm going to launch it out there. But it didn't even occur to me, did the market want it, desire it, were willing to pay for it? And it was that I've been in the AR collections type industry, and I thought, I'm going to teach people how to do it in their business. And most people, when I got down to it, started putting together these courses. People are like, hell no, I don't want to do that. I want you to go do it. And so it's important to know, what are the market looking for? So let's jump right into it. What are some of the things businesses should look out for when they want to launch a product, service, or information? Where should they begin to start to realize, is it something that's marketable and that people want?
Sure. Well, first of all, let's start out by saying that everybody starts to do something and they think they're going on the right path for a commercial launch. And so essentially what I'm talking about is sometimes people forget things to do. And I liken this whole approach of what should we do for launching is kind of like the Apollo 13 saga. Now, I don't know if you remember the movie, one of my favorite movies with Tom Hanks, but if you remember, NASA launched it after months of preparation and the efforts of thousands of employees, and everybody is clapping and applauding when the launch goes, because everybody knows that the launch is the most risky part of the whole thing. But what ends up happening is 2 days later, an oxygen tank ruptures, disabling the control modules, and placing the lunar landing is over, and the lives of the folks at risk. And so basically, what happened is they were ready for their launch, but they didn't think through everything. And as a result, the launch failed. So what I look at is that when you're approaching your marketing campaign, it's the same kind of thing. If you don't start and look at a lot of different things, you're going to have a problem.
Yeah. What are some of the things that they should pay attention to?
Sure. Well, I've kind of got 7 things in mind, but okay. And I'll just give you a list, and then we can talk about whichever ones seem to be the most interesting. Okay. First is segmentation and targeting. The second thing is having case studies. The third thing is having what I call an influencer engagement plan. Okay. Second, another engagement plan would be a customer engagement plan. Having an economic benefit approach nailed down, as well as understanding what the budgetary impact is, And then the last thing is competitive management. So those are the things that I think are often missed, because most of the time they've got the product, they've got their collateral, they think they're all set. It's these other things that cause difficulties.
Well, I'm interested in not only in getting feedback from the customer, but also how to use influencers to grow, because I think I miss that, using how I could possibly use others to get the word out, and also kind of going back to the customers that like me and to get a better handle on what their needs are.
Yeah. So, I mean, I look at customer engagement and influencer engagement as pretty closely related. So, for customer engagement, I think what people need to do is they need to take into consideration kind of like the environmental things that are going on with their customers. Now, one thing that I'm not sure everybody is aware of, but I mean, we know a lot of internet searching for products goes on, but what's I find is a really incredible fact is that most decision makers have made 70% of their decision before they even go onto a company website.
Wow.
Yeah. So basically what I'm thinking is that if you think you're just going to slap your collateral on your website, chances are people will have already researched you on other avenues, and your information is going to be secondary to what they already heard. And then this is where the influencers come in, because what happens is there's a general distrust of big companies, right? So what they do is they look for peers to comment on things. That's why, things like Yelp and all that are so popular, because people want to find out about a company before they even start to engage them, even on the internet. And so what ends up happening is that if you understand where your customers are getting their information from, and sometimes it's these key influencers who are on the internet. So you understand what the customer, where they're getting information, and then you try and interact with the folks who are influencing those decisions, and that's where the whole influencer thing comes in.
Wow. So you're getting peer, I forget what they call it in marketing, but you're getting that peer understanding where people trust these people. And if they're the ones talking about your product, then it's going to, like if your friends are, oh, I love this toothpaste, you got to try it, Christina. I trust Carlene, so I'm going to go try that toothpaste.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's just the way things work. And, it's really much more pertinent as the younger generations are becoming more and more buyer decisions. People from the boomer age are probably less likely to do that. But the next generations, they're savvy with the internet. They're a little more distrustful, and they're really kind of looking for folks to kind of tell them what they feel and think about products, services, and all that.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, some of my major purchases were made from reviews of friends. I trust my friends, my neighbors, people I'm closest with. So that makes complete sense. Now, I'm also wondering, how do we pivot? Let's say we launch a product, but, like you were talking about, the environment changes, things change. Like last year we had lockdowns and stuff. And now what worked before isn't working anymore. Do you have some suggestions on how maybe something you've launched, you have to pivot and kind of change it up a bit, how you might go about doing that?
Well, I'm a big proponent of a philosophy called the lean startup. Okay. And what the lean startup is all about is customer discovery. So really, the way I look at what your question is all about is that something has changed with the customer, and we don't really understand what's going on or why. So from my perspective, that this is where market research comes into play, and it doesn't have to be expensive market research. You just need to go out and talk with the customers. So if there's something that's going on, you're not hitting your goals, the first thing you need to do is you need to contact your customers. And okay, that I've talked about how I work with startups, and they always are in a situation where they don't have money for market research, but you don't have to spend money. You pick up the phone.
I know this amazing thing.
Yeah. And in my area is much more along the hospital industry and things like that. And so I've got a lot of connections with people in hospitals. So what will happen is when I've got a client who's looking at that, I use those connections to go and, talk to face to face or, Zoom or whatever, just to find out what's going on. Well, any business owner can do that same thing. I know very few business owners who don't know anybody in the industry that they're trying to sell in. So you just got to use your connections network and really start asking those questions and find out. The trick might be, well, what are the right questions?
That's what I was just going to ask you. Yeah. Because I think if you have a great customer, a lot of times they don't want to offend you. So they're like, well, I'm not going to just tell them that I don't want to make them feel bad. So how do you ask the probing questions that make them feel comfortable to tell you how they're really feeling?
Oh, well, I guess what I would start is I would go with somebody I know really, really well, because they're going to give you the truth, especially if you say, look, things are going wrong. I need you to give me your honest opinion, and they'll do that. And so I would explain with them, I'm not hitting any of my targets. I don't seem to get customers interested. Here's what I'm saying. What do you think is happening? Or you could ask, does this resonate with you or not? And you kind of get that kind of feedback. Or if it's a distribution issue, you could ask the same kind of thing. It really kind of depends on really what the problem is as to what the questions. But that would be where I start. And then what I would be doing is I would just blatantly, it's really not rocket science. I would be asking them, well, what would help you, kind of make this purchase decision? And you just kind of collect those things. And I find most people, if they know you, they're quite happy to give you those kinds of opinions and that. Now, the one thing that is worrisome to me, I guess, is you should have done that in the first place. So you should have a pretty good idea before you've launched what the customer needs are and things like that, which means that when you're going back to troubleshoot, you're really asking some very specific questions about what your assumptions were and how that's changed. Now, if you haven't done your market research up front, then you've got a much bigger area to scope out. But yeah.
You know what's interesting, Stephen? I remember when I'd been on the air for a couple of years, and I noticed that our listenership started to decrease. So I started to reach out to some of our audience members who have been with us from day one. I said, okay, what are you feeling? Would you like something to change? Is it something that better suits you or, serve you better as regards to listening to our show? And I said, well, I love your show, but I'm just so busy. If it were a little shorter or, sometimes I actually like to engage. So if you had a little bit more engagement. So when that came across, me and my husband said, okay, let's bring out a little bit different topics sometimes. Let's make them 15 minutes instead of 30 to 45 minutes like we used to do. And it started to really help our listenership because we were listening to what people needed at that moment. Because I think the one thing we forget as business owners that things aren't static. So what worked for our clients maybe 5 years ago, today might not.
Well, and there's one other thing I noticed that you've done differently from when we last talked. It's video.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Now, and that's really important because there's other statistics that basically say right now that, and I don't know the exact number, but let's say 60 or 70% of people who are on the internet prefer to get their information from video as opposed to reading or listening.
Why do you think that is? What's your idea about that? Why do you think that is?
I have not really looked into it. Okay. But when you look at it, we're a very visual society today. Yeah. I mean, just think of how television has in cable and that has dominated. So I think what's happening is the younger generation has been brought up just watching, and I think that it's just so natural to them. And quite honestly, it is much more engaging. If you can see people and all that, I just think it keeps people's attention and they're used to it. but
Yeah.
I haven't ever actually seen any research on it yet.
No, I get you, Steve, because I find I connect better with someone when I can see their even talking to you. I can see your face emoting. There's so much more to language, I think, than just hearing your voice and what you're saying, and a lot of it comes across in your body language that you're not going to catch from a podcast that's just an audio.
Well, and also I'm kind of feeding off of you in that. I mean, I look at you and it gives me energy, so and you can see my little hands moving back and forth, but then helps with the audience too, I believe. So
yeah. There's just so much to learn from, and this is a good thing for us to go to when you're launching a product. How important is it to launch a product using video? I think it could be a useful tool as well.
Oh, absolutely. I think if you're not incorporating video, you're missing the mark. You really are.
Yeah.
Set up a YouTube channel, make sure you got all sorts of things put together. And you know what? You don't have to hire a great big production company. Turn on your iPhone and do it. I see so many people just doing iPhone videos, and people love it. So
yeah. I've got a wonderful Microsoft thing that USB plug into my computer. This is a black screen. It costs $60 if you have a lot of mess behind you, and then a nice light up here, a light back there, and a light from the ceiling here, and we're good to go. But it's amazing that for fraction of the cost what it used to cost for video production, anyone can have an amazing video of content and great looking videos. Yeah. Well, go.
I don't know if this will help, but I was thinking that I might just try and give you a little bit of a story about
go for it.
How to do this, which is I was launching a product for this big Fortune 500 company. And basically, it was for a bunch of nephrologists. They're the people who treat kidney disease. And what we had an ability to provide protein to their patients through the therapy they were doing. And now, luckily, I understood that we had some challenges. So way before launch, I took a look at, well, what are the barriers that could prevent us from actually having a successful launch? And quite honestly, this is what I'm hoping your audience will do. Well before the launch, let's think about what are the barriers. And the first barrier I found out was that, first of all, the nephrologists, they only get 5 minutes of training in their medical school training on nutrition. And believe it or not, that's no joke. It's like 5 minutes. So they didn't really understand nutrition, which of course means they don't understand when someone's malnourished or anything like that. And the other thing that happened was they didn't really understand that malnutrition was a problem. There were clinical research articles out there, but what we needed to do was we need to generate awareness that this is a problem. So for the launch, one of the first things we did was we collected these articles and we sent them to our docs so that the docs really understand that, hey, this is a problem. I need to look and focus on my patients to see if they need anything. And then the second thing that happened was, because they've never had training, they had no idea on how to diagnose whether a patient was malnourished because of a lack of protein intake. So, I mean, you can lose weight for a lot of different things. There's a wasting disease and all that kind of stuff, which our product wouldn't treat. So and the other thing that was interesting was that there was no tool that could teach them how to assess their patients. I ended up finding a doctor in Toronto who had a validated approach for assessing the nutritional status of our patients. Now, it took us 6 months to take that, turn it into a video and a training manual and things like that. But what ended up happening is a result of doing that pre-work and incorporating that into our launch, we were able to accommodate and address these two really significant barriers that would have really shot down our business. And so the message I'm hoping your audience can get is that if you're launching and you haven't thought about what the barriers are, it's kind of late. And you should think about it beforehand.
Yeah, you got to start at the beginning. And you know what's interesting to me? I've heard that there are people who are super overweight, because we have a society grossly obese, but that you could also be malnourished but obese, which I didn't even know was possible. But I guess because, if you're eating a lot of junk food and whatever, you're not really getting the nutrition you need, but you're putting on the pounds.
Yes, yeah, I think that's true. You're not getting especially the minerals, and that that kind of thing, which really comes with the good food. Yeah.
Well, we could go on that topic on another show. It's, but I've been so blessed to have you back here, Steve. I'd love to have you share where people can find out more about Foresight. How could they do that, and more about what you have to offer?
Sure. Well, thanks very much. Yeah. The easiest way is to look online to www.foresight-consultinginc.com. So that's FORESIGHT with a dash, consultinginc.com. Or you can give me a call too. I'm available at 224-520-0506.
Awesome.
Located in Chicago, Central Time.
Well, thank you so much, Steve Garchow, again, for coming to Savvy Broadcasting and sharing your great wisdom today. Thank you.
Christina, thanks very much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
You betcha.
Take care.
Like, subscribe, and share this episode. To listen to more savvy episodes and savvy biz tips, go to www.lifeunscriptedradio.com. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest, email Christina at lifeunscriptedradio.com.